Hi guys, so courtesy of the hard work of the legendary MCOC data miner Otriux, we have now the full abilities and synergy bonuses for Mr. Fantastic in Marvel Contest of Champions. So he is Science, so his abilities are Evade, Pre-Fight ability, something I think Cross-Fight ability, and Taunt. Let's talk about his synergies. So Herbie, other synergy members, if at or below 20% health at the start of the fight, heal 10% of max health over 6 seconds. Otherwise, gain 60% of a bar of power over 6 seconds instead. So he has power gain and regeneration. Does not stack with duplicate synergies. The Fantastic Four. If all other champions in this synergy are present, thing, whenever you would gain a rank stack, gain a additional one. Oh. Human Torch. Incinerate and Nova Flame durations increased by 30%. Invisible Woman. Invincibility only has 15% chance to unpause during a well-timed block. Mr. Fantastic, for each unique debuff on the opponent. Okay, this is the continuation. Okay, Mr. Fantastic, for each debuff on the opponent, they take 4% of Mr. Fantastic's current attack rating as direct damage per second. So more damage for him. Do a part with Invisible Woman. Mr. Fantastic debuffs last 20% longer. Council of Reeds. Mr. Fantastic increase attack by a certain percentage. The potency of the synergies is increased by a flat 30% for each other Mr. Fantastic on your team. What? College Rivals. Mr. Fantastic and Doctor Doom. So for Mr. Fantastic, gain 5% of his max power each time a buff is nullified or its duration expires of the opponent. Doctor Doom, heavy attacks apply up to 1 armor break. Debuff for 10 seconds, reducing armor rating by 15%. Shared Knowledge, Astronomy, Cosmic, and Skill. Champion basic hits. Pause one of each buff on them for 0.2 seconds. Shared Knowledge, Robotics, Tech and Science. Champions debuffs also apply an indefinite power sting, dealing direct damage equal to 60% of their attack rating. When the opponent activates a special attack, the power sting stacks up to 3 times. Shared Knowledge, Genetics, Mutant, and Mystic. Champions regain 5% of the power spent on any special attack for each unique special attack they've used in the fight. Okay. So his awakened ability, the smartest man in the battle realm. Mr. Fantastic's offensive power rate is increased by 50% for each careful study passive on the opponent. Mr. Fantastic gains an additional flat 20% chance to evade any unblockable attack. Oh, he has a chance to evade unblockable attack. Oh, nice. This increases by 3% every time the opponent starts an unblockable hit, capped at 50% for basic attacks. So it's like a Daredevil here. Increases 3% every time the opponent starts an unblockable attack. Oh, so he cannot be hit. Passive. Physical and energy resistance increased by plus 900. 5% chance to evade for each non-damaging debuff on either champion. It's like Elsa. He can counter parry. Does not trigger during a well-timed block. Oh, so it does not trigger on parry. I'm sorry. Attack rating is increased by 115 for each debuff on the opponent. Prepared for anything. His pre-fight ability. Before the fight, choose up to 3 unique debuffs. Oh, to place on the opponent at the start of the fight. The start of the next fight. Debuff costs 1 persistent charge. Mr. Fantastic starts with 2 persistent charges, and can have to 5. When Mr. Fantastic finishes a fight, he gains 1 persistent charge for each unique debuff on the opponent. These debuffs each last 12 seconds and are refreshed when the opponent is knocked down. Debuffs are applied even if a different champion enters the fight. Debuff potency scales with the rarity of Mr. Fantastic. If the different versions of a debuff are applied, only the strongest one triggers. Prepared for anything. Pre-fight debuffs max 3 each. Petrify the opponent, reducing their effectiveness of the regeneration and power gain effects by 35%. Oh, kind of like Void, and suppress the opponent, decreasing their defensive power rate by 22%. Counter to Hyperion. Debuff Siphon the opponent, increasing the potency of damage over time debuffs on them by 22% and reducing the potency of those effects on allies by the same amount. This does not affect abilities that trigger at the start of the fight. Opponent activates a special attack. When the opponent activates a special attack, place an indefinite careful studied debuff on them for that special attack. So, opponent activates a special attack. When the opponent activates a special attack, place an indefinite careful study debuff on them for that special attack. A careful study debuff lowers the attack rating for each hit in the special attack by 25%. Okay. If Mr. Fantastic was struck by the last hit of the special attack, place 1 additional copy of that debuff. All copies of that debuffs are purified when the opponent activates a different special attack than the one that triggered the debuff. Careful study crossfight ability. Just a second. Careful study crossfight ability. When the opponent has 3 copies of a careful study debuff, they are combined into a passive that lasts for the rest of the fight and the next 5 fights the opponent participates in. Okay. They will be combined to a passive debuff. Alright. So, I think... Okay. Oh. Okay, so careful study passive count as 3 debuffs for Reed's other abilities. Each passive prevents future matching careful study debuffs. Heavy attack. On the last hit, pause pre-fight debuffs for 3 seconds. So if you want to pause his debuffs, you use the heavy attack. Special attacks. If no pre-fight debuffs were selected, special attacks are unblockable. Okay? SP1. When this attack is activated, 100% chance to place a taunt debuff and stagger debuff on the opponent for 9 seconds. Oh, stagger and stunt. Okay. Stagger is like nullify, you know, and the taunt is like Stark Spidey, you know, cause them to activate specials. Opponents that are taunted have their attack rating reduced by 40% and have a 70% higher chance to activate a special attack. This taunt is removed when the opponent activates a special attack. I mean any special attack. Okay. The next time a staggered opponent triggers a buff, that buff and all the other buffs trigger at the same time are immediately nullified. So he can nullify and he can also taunt. Although the taunt is removed when your opponent activates a special attack. SP2. When this attack is activated, retrigger Mr. Fantastic's selected pre-fight debuff once each. Alright. The last hit shocks the opponent, dealing 1,380 energy damage over 5 seconds. Shock, okay. SP3. If the opponent has at least one debuff, gain a passive fury for 20 seconds, increasing attack by 460 for each debuff on the opponent. So he can deal shock, he can nullify, and then he has a passive fury on the SP3. He's pretty good, man. Okay. Let me know in the comment section below what do you think about Mr. Fantastic. Okay. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Leave a like if you would. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video or you found this video helpful. I appreciate you guys watching. Like and subscribe. Take care. I think it's pretty awesome though, right?